Hello, everyone. My name is Alex. I'm a translator here at MCIS Language Solutions, and I'm very happy to have this training session with you today. Welcome. We will be talking today about XTM, which is the new computer-assisted translation tool that we have decided to use here at MCIS. It is a tool that is completely integrated into Plunet, our new project management platform, and so you realize that it's easy to use and very efficient. Today's session will be recorded, so if you miss anything or you want to go over what we're going to talk about a second time, the recording will be made available to you later today or tomorrow. We will also be sending you written material concerning this tool to help you use it better, and we'll also provide information about how to log into the tool. So let's start. And we'll have, by the way, we'll have a Q&A session at the end of this presentation, so please keep your questions for the end of the presentation. Thank you. All right, so XTM is a computer-assisted translation tool, which means that it uses translation memories, which I'm sure you've heard of before. And this will make your job much easier whenever you have to work on certain projects or for some specific clients. Now let's look at my emails here, because you're going to see that a few things change whenever you get assigned to a project using XTM and our translation memories. Now you can see I received here task emails, and you've learned about this already in our previous training sessions. Let's look at this one regarding a translation. Now what changes here, as you can see, is that I get a very detailed quantity section, because the document I'm going to be working in as a freelancer has been analyzed by the system, by XTM, and the result of this analysis is provided here, as well as a matching rate for every type of segment match. Now you can see that I have words translation, which is our usual pricing unit, which means that these are new words, and I have 616 of them. I have words ICE match. That may be a term you have never seen before. It means in context exact match. They're also sometimes referred to as 101% match, which means that not only has the system found an exact translation of this segment, but it has found it in a similar context, meaning that the sentence that comes before and the sentence that comes after in the document are similar to the new document. A leverage match is a 100% match, so it's an exact repetition, but the context is not necessarily the same. And then you have fuzzy matches, 95 to 99 and so forth, as well as fuzzy repeats, which are internal repetitions within the new document. So it doesn't match anything in our translation memory, but it is repeated within the new document. So pay attention to this analysis when you receive a task or you have to approve a task to be done, because in this case you see that there's a lot of different words, so we probably have something around 1,200 words to do, but there's only 616 new words, so that makes your job faster. And this is, as usual, the amount that you will be getting, the total amount. So once you receive this and you have accepted the task, you can log into Plunet, and you already know how to do that, so that's perfect. And you're going to see your tasks here, as you know. And we're going to start with the translation. Again, this is a window you're familiar with already if you took our training and you started working in Plunet. There isn't much that changes here. What does change, as you can see, is that you have a new tab here called Cat Web Editor. And this is the tab from which you will be accessing our tool, XTM. So you will need to click on this button here, Open in XTM. Now, I was already logged in here, so let me just log out and start over. So this is what clicking on that link will do. You will be brought to this window here. You notice that the company should always be MCIS. And for your username, you will be entering your email address. Bear with me, I'm using an English keyboard here. I'm usually using a French one, so I might hesitate once in a while when I'm typing. and your password. If it's the first time that you're logging into the tool, which is going to be your case, then you should click on Forgotten Your Password, and this will bring you to another window where you simply enter your email address, and it will send you a link to generate a new password. So you can do that on your own. It's a very easy step to do. And once you have created your password, you can come back to this window here and enter your password, start over, and log in. And this is the main window of XTM. So this is the window from which you're going to be accessing your projects in XTM. Now, XTM is really only our CAD tool platform, so we won't be managing projects from here. Although you might see a lot of information, we don't always use all of that information. So if you see a little bit too much, don't worry about it. The information that really matters is the information in Plunet. For instance, a due date. The due date in Plunet should always be the due date that matters. If you ever see an inconsistency here, there shouldn't be any, but if you do, please let us know and we'll look into that. But as a rule, always refer to Plunet for delivery dates. Now, let's look at what we have here. You can see that this is the project that I opened from Plunet. You can see it has the same project name. This is my project name here, and it matches the project name here. I also have the nickname of the client, which is simply a code that's associated with the client. In this case, HLBC. Some of you might be familiar with this client. I have the name of the file, my source and target languages. Now we had to only choose one variation for languages that have regional variations. In XTM, there's only one. So if you see French from France, it's not a personal preference of ours. It's just that we had to choose that to ensure that the translation memories work properly. So nothing against French Canadians here. My due date. You can see that as a step, I have translate one. Quick note on that, XTM doesn't really use the same terminology as Plunet. So if you see something like correct 1 or correct 2, those are our revision and validation of revision steps. But all of this will be detailed in the training material you will be provided. So if you forget something because I'm speaking too fast, don't worry. You're going to see also here a number of segments, 1 to 95. Usually segments are sentences, so that this means you might have around 95 sentences to work on. And you also have a progress bar, which is quite interesting. If you start working on your translation, but then, well, it's time to eat, so you stop, you come back later, the progress bar here allows you to know how much of the work you've already done. Now, it's a little strange here maybe for you because it says 9% already done when it's the first time I open this. Well, it's because, as I said, the document has been analyzed by the system, and we have found some matches in our translation memory. Those matches have been populated in my translation already, so I already have translated content, which means that in this case, I have 9% of the document already translated. Now, as a rule, and that's always been the case here at MCIS, we ask our providers to double check segments that have been pre-translated because you never know, this has been done automatically. There might be mistakes, there might be typos, there might be segments that have been misassigned. So you need to double check those. But we'll go over that again when we open the window. You also have other tabs here at the top of the XTM window. First of all, let's look at those sub-tabs. You have planned tasks. I have 2 more here because for the training purposes here, I assigned myself to the revision, which is correct 1, as I said, and the validation, which is correct 2. So these tasks will become available later. And closed tasks, I have quite a few here. Those are tasks that I already performed. I have the TM tab, the terminology tab. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. And I have the configuration tab, which I do recommend that you open the very first time you come to XTM. You will have the opportunity here to choose a new password if you want to change it. Now, a quick note on that, the Plunet and XTM passwords are not linked. So if you wish to change your password in XTM, that does not change your password in Plunet and vice versa. So be mindful of that if you're changing passwords. You can see there's mandatory information here, and this has already been entered for you. And there's also a time zone that you should be setting, in this case, for me, Canada, Eastern Time. There is also a very useful help and information page where you can see there's quite a lot of information. You can find the full user manual for XTM. For those of you who don't like long documents, you might not like this one. It's, I think, close to 200 pages, but not everything is about working in XTM as a translator. So only a section of that document relates to what you're going to be doing, but it's still very useful to refer to this document. You also have questions and answers and other resources here. So that's about it here. So now let's start working. How does it work? Well, you have access to XTM from Plunet. You're ready to work. What are you going to be doing? Well, it's very easy. You simply click on this project. Anywhere on the bar, you can see that it gets highlighted as I hover over it. So you click. And there you go. This is the main window, the CAT tool window from which you will be doing your translation. As you can see, it's structured as most CAT tools are structured, and it's similar to the CAT tool we were using before in Flow. You have a source column, in this case English Canada, and a target column, French France, and you have two additional columns, number, which is the number of the segment. So we said in this case there's 95 of them, as you can see here. So we're going to have 1 to 95. And here you have a status, which I will be talking about in a little bit. You also have very useful menu bars. You have one here, which gives you access to different tools like filters, which we will be talking about. This is really useful for the validation of revision. You have a spell checker. You have metrics, which give you more information about the analysis of the document. And you have settings here. I'm going to open this now. I recommend that you do open it the very first time you start a translation in XTM, because there are a few settings you can change here that might make your life easier. For instance, if your eyes are not as good as they used to be, you might want to use this. I think by default it's on 12. You can see the font is pretty small, sorry. So if you go to settings, font, you can make it bigger, which I find quite useful. You can also change the font itself and the weight of the font, so it might look a little bolder, and you can save it here. As an option, you can also choose to populate the target column with the source whenever there's no match found. So you can see here that we do have a match, it's in French, but if there's nothing like here, you could decide that you want to see the source in there because it's easier to copy and paste maybe, or to use specific terms from the source segment. So you can just do that and save, and you can now see that you have your source text in your target, and you can just edit it as you want. I'm going to remove that because I don't like it. That's a personal choice. There you go. So these are the features from this menu bar. A note on the spell checker. On this side, the spell checker is for the entire document. So if you click on this, it's going to check the spelling in everything, all the segments. You also have a spell check here. If you click on this one, it only checks the spelling in a specific segment where you are now. You have arrows here that you can use to go up and down, but they're not really necessary because you'll be using mostly the Enter key on your keyboard. You can add comments, which is extremely useful if you have questions or if you want to share something with the reviser, or at the revision step if you want to explain a change that you've made, or maybe provide a link towards that links to a reference or something similar. And you can go from previous to next segment in the document using these arrows here. And the other tools we're not going to be using really, but you do have this one that's really useful, which provides a history of a segment, and we'll go back to that in just a bit. So how do we actually do our translation? Well, first let's look at the source column, because it provides more than just your source text. It's actually augmented text. Now it's augmented in two ways. The first way is that, as you can see, some words have been bolded and are in blue. Now, what is that? Well, those are words that are found in MCIS's glossaries. So we do have glossaries for specific clients, and those have been entered here in the system. And we also have a general reference glossary, which has been pulled from ONTERM, which is the Ontario Provincial linguistic resource that's available to everyone online, but we've added it here for your convenience. Although documents we will be working on are not always from Ontario, so be mindful when you use suggestions from that glossary that they might not be adequate for the translation you're doing, but they're still interesting in most cases to look at. So in this case, for instance, if you have waterborne illnesses, you can click on this and see maladie grave. Those are suggestions. Of course, I'm talking about this because I'm a French translator. This is a resource that's only available in English and French. And at the moment, we don't have official resources from the government inputted in the system, but that might come at a later date. So in this case, you can see it's extremely useful. You can double click. Oops, that's not working. It's actually a single click, I think. Well, I'll have to double check that, sorry. But anyway, you can also simply look at it and type it in the target segment. So these are the first way, this is the first way the text is augmented in the source column. The second way is with those green tags here. Now, if you've worked in the web editor and Flow before, or any other CAD tool, you're probably familiar with those tags. If you haven't worked in CAD tools, the tags are actually used to reproduce the layout of a document, because as you can see, you can only see the extracted text from the source document. You cannot see the layout, but the layout is still important, of course, and we'll be talking about that at the validation of revision step. But to ensure that the layout is mostly accurate when you deliver your translation, you're going to have to be using those tags. Let's find the segment pre-translated, this one. So this one has tags in it, but sometimes the tags will be missing. So let's imagine that I don't have my tags here. I can see them in the source text. Well, notice how it says this segment has invalid inline tags. So the system is very useful in the sense that it tells you what's wrong in your translation. It makes it easier to correct it. So in this case, I do have this pre-translation, but it's missing my tag. What is actually the tag for? In this case, if you click on it, you can see that it actually provides a hyperlink in the translation, which means that in the actual document, you could be clicking on this, and it will actually open your internet browser at that address, at that link. Because the tags are missing here in my translation, I'm going to have to use the Alt key and the number key. So in this case, the number is 1. And by pressing Alt 1, I can insert my tag right here, and then click here and insert again Alt 1. And my error message disappears, so I'm very happy about that. And I can proceed to the next translation, the next segment. Now, there was a problem in this segment, and it was a pre-translated segment. So we could probably talk about the status of the segments here, because I think that's extremely useful. You can see that this one has an orange status. What does that mean? Also, the orange is paired with a letter. So the letters and the colors are really informative, and I do recommend using those. When it says M, it means it's a match, but not necessarily a perfect match. So that's why it's highlighted in orange, because the system wants you to really double check this. There might be errors. In this case, the system tells you that it's a leverage match, and I mentioned that before. It's a leverage match is 100% match, but not in context. So you might want to check, because maybe because of the context in this document, you would need to change a few things here and there. So it's orange, it's matched. If I'm happy with the translation, I press Enter, and it turns to green. The color in the center, you can see there's red here. That doesn't matter to you at the translation stage or at the stage in which you're working right now. What matters is the color in the middle, which is green, so I'm happy. Again, here you have a match, but weird, it's not in here. Well, because usually it only populates in context exact matches or leverage matches. In this case, it didn't populate it because the system is not sure that it's a good match. So you can just, once again, let's look at this. You click here, and you get your match here instead of here, because the system really wants you to double check and approve. So if you do like this, and if you have worked in files for this client before, you know that we don't translate the month and the year. So I am happy with this. I want to use August 2016. I'm going to click on the tick mark here, and it simply populates it. And then if I press Enter, it turns to green. So the status bar here is really, really important because you do need to check that all the segments in your document have a green status before you deliver your file. Let's look at the other statuses. You have a U here. What does U mean? Well, if you hover over, you can see that it says unmatched. So there are no matches in the translation memory for this segment, which means that it needs to be translated from scratch. So you will be doing your translation here. Again, for those who are familiar with this client, we don't translate that part. And if you're not familiar with that client, but you do get to work on those files, you will get specific instructions, don't worry. So see, again, it turns to green, so I'm happy about that. And let's look at this one. Fuzzy match. The system suggests a translation, but it's not that close to my segment here. I have why should drinking water be disinfected, but in the translation memory, the tool found why should I disinfect my drinking water. So you can see that the changes are highlighted. You have the new translation, the new version, sorry, of the segment, which is in blue, and the old version of the segment, which is in red. So what you can do if you want to use this, because you find that it's still useful, you can click here, it puts it in here, and then you can make your changes manually. So why should drinking water be disinfected? Honestly, I think that this translation is fine, so I will approve it, and it turns to green. And you just proceed from segment to segment, delivering all the translations in each segment. Again, you have to match the tags, and we talked about that. You go down, you go down. Now be careful that if you look at the settings, again, that's an option you can pick. I have decided here to display 100 segments per page, but you might be working on a document that has more than 100 segments, more than 100 sentences. In that case, this will say 1 to 100, and then by going here, you can display 100 to 200 and so forth. But don't worry, if you forget about this, when you arrive at the end and you press enter, it will bring you to the second page of segments. It's just that if you think that everything is on this page, you might get a surprise when you arrive at the end and it actually loads another page. So be sure to check the number of segments you'll be working on. Let me see if I forgot anything. I'm going to add a comment here so that we can see it at the next stage. You can see my comment appears here. So that's the reviser will be able to see that. That's always useful. Let's look again at this feature here. Now that I have actually added translations, maybe I can look at this one. It's going to be more useful. Let's make a change here. I'll remove this and I'll remove that. So I actually applied a change. I'm approving it, so it's still green. But if I click here, segment history, now this feature is very useful if you realize that you have applied changes that maybe you shouldn't have applied and you want to revert to a previous translation of the segment. And you have the history by clicking on this feature button. You have the history of the translation of the segment. So first you have the English, because we started with that. Then we have the match that we accepted for this translation. And then I have the changes that I applied to the match. So you have quite a few different steps here. And if you want to revert to one of them, so let's say that because I made some changes here that I don't like, I want to revert to this. I select it, click restore, and you can see that my word hydrique and potable are both back in my translation, and I can approve it again. So these are some of the very useful features that you can use from this tool. Let's look at the spell check very quickly. So in this case, there's no mistake. Let's add one. Oh, maybe I need to do that or that. There it is. So it's looking at my segments and it's finding mistakes. Now you can see that it puts all of my, that's interesting. See, I'm still learning. Running the spell checker populated all the target column of the source. That is not something I wanted, and that is not a setting I have agreed to. So that is something I will need to look into. So be careful when you use the spell checker for now. We will be double checking that, but still a useful feature to use. Of course, within the translation column here, the target column, you can use copy and paste features as in any other word processing tool. You can copy and search on Google if you want, and actually useful tool if you right-click, you see that you have other options here, go to next segment and so forth. Those are options you can find in the menu bars on the side, but you also have find and replace. Again, that's something that's very common to most text processing features. So you can search for a word and replace it massively. And you can also search in Google. So this will open Google if you want to run a very quick search on this term here. That's very useful as well. And then you have the terminology feature. This is something extremely useful. So let's talk about that. So far in the CAT tool that we've been using at MCIS, which was incorporated into Flow, we haven't been able to really use glossaries that well. I'm very happy to say that with XTM, using glossaries is going to be much easier for all of you. Well, first of all, you have the suggestions from the glossaries here in the source column, and we covered that. But the amazing feature here is that you can add entries to those glossaries as you do your translation. Because it's great to have glossaries, but if you don't update them, then they're not that useful anymore. So let's look at this segment because this one has been translated. Let's say there's drinking water, and I'm going to add that to my glossary. You can see it's not in blue, so it's not in the glossary. So the way to use this terminology tool and to add a word in the glossary, you can select the source and copy, Control C, you know how to do that. And then you go here and you select your translation. You go to terminology, add term quick. You can see that I get my two languages, source and target. I already have my translation because I selected it from here. And I copied this one, the source, so I can just paste and add it here. You can see that the system is very clever in remembering the context, so it will add it to the glossary, so that next time that you refer to this term in the glossary, you are provided with some extra information about it. Once that is done, you can simply click Save Term. The term was saved successfully. And fingers crossed, if I go back, there you go. You can see that the term is now in my glossary and it is suggested. And you have I can't put my mouse over it, otherwise it disappears, but you can see here that you have additional information. You have the source term, the context, who added it. In this case, you can see my email address, when it was added, who the customer is. So it's very detailed information here. And we're going to look at the terminology tab here a little bit later, and we're going to see that you can actually add much more information, so it can be even more useful. So those are the different tools that you can use at this step, the translation step or the revision step. So you have a lot of different things here to help you, and we're hoping that this is really going to make your work easier. So once you're ready to deliver your translation, at this point we're not, because not everything is green, and I really want to emphasize that it needs to be green. So you need to go through each segment and press enter to turn the status to green. Now, it's not about pressing enter, it's really about reading what's there and checking that it's correct. And in this case, you'll excuse me if I'm going really fast and I leave English in here. It's just so that I don't have you here for 2 hours while I do a translation. So I'm just gonna approve all of my segments. You can see the window naturally goes down. You don't have to do anything. It's very smooth. You can see that you get a lot of exclamation marks here. Those are always worth checking, although with the glossary, they're usually going to tell you that the translation from the glossary is not found in your target column. Now, because this glossary, as I said, offers a lot of information, which is from on-term, you won't always be using the suggestions from here. So don't worry about this too much. And I'm just going down, approving all of my segments. See here, invalid tags. So I'm going to add this really fast because this is not something that I can leave leave unattended. I have to take care of these issues before I deliver my file. So if you just put your tags as they should be, you can see that the error messages disappear. In this case, I have tags that I don't need. Let's look at these because we haven't seen that before. Let me just correct the tags. I'm going to remove them here. I'm going to remove them here as well. In this case, look at that. The system is giving me several matches. So I have a translation to perform of this segment, and the system gives me 2 matches. It might also give you 3. The maximum is 3, and they're usually in order, meaning that the first one is going to be the closest match, and the last one is the furthest away from the actual segment you're working on. And you can see that information here. This is an 86% fuzzy match, and this one is a 75% fuzzy match. Still, you might want to use either or. That depends really on the context, so double check them and then make your changes because they're fuzzy, so you know that there are changes to be made. And I keep approving. And that's it. I have approved all of my segments. This one has invalid tag, so I'll add that really quickly. Bear with me. And there it is. There you go. So I have delivered, well, I have performed all of the translation here. I'm ready to go, so I can click on this button here. Like, it's easy to miss it, but there is indeed a button here to finish my task. Now be careful that if you click this button, the task won't be available to you anymore, which is just the same as in our previous system. So be really careful not to press it if you're not finished. There you go. You get a little reminder that you have to check everything, all your inline tags and all your error messages, which I did. And there you go. So now if you go back to this, oh, sorry, looks like it didn't deliver. Okay, there it is. So now you can see that the task is not here anymore. I do have a task, but it's correct one, which is a revision. Now, very important step. You're not done delivering your translation because although XTM and Plunet are integrated, the integration does have limitations, which means that at this point, and we're hoping it might be solved in the near future, but at this point, you do have to go back to Plunet to mark the task as completed. Now, I'm pretty sure I'm logged out here. Yes, so I'll log back in. So once you have finished your task in XTM, you've marked it as finished, it's not available anymore in your inbox, you go back to Plunet, and you can see that here my task is still in progress because Plunet doesn't get the information from XTM that I am done with the task. So you open it again, and you go to delivery. You know how that works. You have maybe already done it if you started working in Plunet, but you have learned it from our previous training sessions. And you know that you have to check all the instructions, make sure that you performed all of our instructions, check them one by one. And you don't need to deliver a file at this stage because we're working in the CAD tool. We're not working in the actual source file. We're only going to have a target file at the very end of the workflow, so after the validation of revision. So at this point, you don't need to put anything here. We're simply just marking the task as completed. So you have checked everything here. You can press final delivery or partial delivery. That depends on your project. Again, that's in the training material that you already got about Plunet. So you can click final delivery in this case. And you can see you get a confirmation. My PM account received information regarding this task being completed, and you can see that it's delivered. So whoever is going to be doing the revision now receives an email notification, and you can see that in this case it's me, and the task shows as in progress. So if I am the reviser, I'm logging in, I get this task. Again, I just come to CAD Web Editor, click and open in XTM, enter my information, and that brings me back to this main window here. And I can find my task. I'm gonna get a sip of water, excuse me. All right, I open my task and I have it here. So you can see similar window, you're already familiar with this. You can see that the status of some of the segments is not green. Why is that? Well, because I marked it green as a translator, meaning that I'm happy with my translation, but the system still marks it in orange in this case because it thinks it needs to be checked. Why is that? Because in this case, for instance, I used the leverage match, but I didn't double check it maybe. Or in this case, the system sees that it's in English, so it marks it as to be revised. So there's, again, a lot of information in the status column, and this will all be detailed. It might be a little confusing in the beginning using the status column because it's a very narrow column, but that carries a lot of information. So don't worry if it's a little overwhelming right now. It's going to be detailed quite nicely in the training information we'll provide you. And remember that if you go to configuration, there is also a very detailed information there that you can access regarding all of this. Regarding the different letters, I think actually I didn't cover all of them. So you have U for unmatched, M for matched, which is either leveraged or fuzzy match. You might have I, not sure I have any, yes, I do have some here. I, which is in context exact match, and you can see that these are green because for the system they should be perfect, although as I said, you should always double check them. So again, the status column, look into the training material we'll send you to get more information about how this works. It's really not as difficult as it looks. So as a reviser, I'm going to be doing my revision. You can see that I can see the comment that the previous user left right here, and I can leave my own comment if I want. I agree. Oops, sorry again, wrong keyboard for me. And you're going to have another one. Now, because I am the same user, it doesn't say who said what, but if it's different users, this will be mentioned here. You're going to have the name of the person who's posting the comment. So you perform your revision. You don't need to activate any track change feature. This is done automatically. So if you think that here it should be 15, let's say, which is completely wrong, but we'll still go with that. You can just make your changes. I'm going to remove potable. Just going to make a few changes so that we can see them at the validation step. In this case, again, I'm going to remove, maybe I'm going to put it as a singular. And I'm going to add this because what a terrible translator. Forgot a letter here. Again, I don't have the right keyboard, so I don't have my accents. Sorry about that. There you go. And just go through each segment. Yes, yes, yes. I'm very happy with everything else. So again, no need to activate any feature. You just make your changes and they will be available at the next stage of the workflow. They will be clearly visible to the translator who validates them. So don't worry about that. Just make your changes, leave your comments using this tool here. And when you're finished, you can finish your task. Same thing as before. You can see that it closes. And if I go here, it's not available anymore, but the validation of revision, which again is called correct to in this case, is available to me because everything is assigned to me. I work so much. Again, you delivered a task in XTM, but it hasn't been delivered in Plunet yet. So please go back to Plunet, and this is the revision I've been working on. Go to delivery. Check everything. My colleague Gabriella took a lot of time to write those instructions, and they're very useful, so please do check them. Again, no need to upload a file here. It's still in XTM. It's still not. It still hasn't been exported, so you don't have to worry about that. Again, partial or final delivery. That depends on your project. And there you go. And I still have my validation of revision. Let's look at that because there are a few things to know about that as well. So by the way, I keep opening the projects from here, but you don't have to do that. We're also going to provide you with the direct link to XTM, which is actually right here. It's not difficult to find. And from there, this is the window you get, so it's a little bit different. You get this beautiful Manhattan skyline. I hope it's Manhattan, otherwise I just made a fool of myself. You enter your information, there it is, your password, and it brings you to the exact same window. So it's just that the login window is a little bit different. So let's validate this. Again, just click on this, and it opens it. And look at this. You can see the changes that have been made by the reviser. So in this case, well, it's not a change, but there's a comment from the reviser. Again, the name of the person, or at least user 1, user 2 will be shown here, depends on user rights. But changes, which is the important part, are highlighted here. So you can see that whatever is in red is the actual change that has been performed. You have the original translation in blue, and the revision line is in green. The change is highlighted or bold and in red. So I changed the segment from August 2016 to August 2015. It's up to you to accept or not. If you're not happy with it, obviously in this case, it's easy to just change it to 6, and that's that. But if the reviser made a very big change and you don't agree with it at all, let's say he just rewrote your entire sentence and you're still happier with your original translation, remember that you have this extremely useful segment history feature. So you can just open that. Again, it's right here. It's also available if you right-click on the segment. And you can go back to your own translation. So that's a very useful feature. In this case, I'm going to keep it because the revision is correct. And well, I can, again, approve all of my segments. I haven't talked about this in case you didn't notice when I used the feature first. Whatever is in orange here is highlighted by the spell checker. So double check that if ever something looks off. Notice that although the translation's already been done, you can still see all the matches from the TM. So feel free to refer to those. And there, I'm at the end of my document. Now, this might be, it looks like it takes a long time because this is basically just a validation. I just want to see the changes. I don't want to be going through all of the segments. So don't worry, there is a feature to take care of that, and that is in the filters section of the tool. So you can click here, segment filters, and choose to display only segments that have comments. Now, all the changes, before going that, let me just show you here. All the changes made by the reviser appear as comments. So a comment is basically a revision, whether it's an actual comment or a revision. So going back to this, you can choose to display segments with comments. If the workflow for some reason is longer than usual, if several people have been working on it, you might want to choose comments added by a specific user. In this case, I'm the only one who's been working on this file, so it's not useful to me. But, so you check comments here, all comments, apply filters, and there you go. So these are the changes that I applied earlier. And you don't have to go through the entire document. You can simply look at the changes here, approve or reject, and that's it. And from there, we assume that everything in the other segments has already been double-checked. It has been perfectly translated by you because you're a great translator, of course. It has been revised by a great reviser, and the reviser didn't put any comment in those segments, so we are not seeing them here, so they don't need to be touched another time. If you do want to see them, of course, you can always go back here and uncheck apply filters, and you can see everything, okay? But to save you some time, you can simply do this. And then once you have reviewed all the changes here and rejected or not, you can finish your task. However, this is the validation of revision step, and the process is a little bit different at this point because, as you know, this is the step at which we're going to need to produce a target file. And this needs to be done from the tool. So a very important warning, please do not click Finish Task at this stage, because if you do that, you won't be able to generate a target file, and someone else will have to do it for you. We don't want that to happen because it's going to be a lot of back and forth. So you can do it yourself. Once you have approved everything or rejected everything, you're happy with the translation and the validation of the revision, you can go to this icon here and choose Download Target File. Now you click that, you're going to see that it's generating a file. There it is. And then you click again, and it downloads it. And you can open it here. This is my file. It's terrible. Please don't pay attention to the content, but it should be perfect at this stage. Once you have downloaded your file, you're sure you have it, you can mark the task as finished. Please close and reopen because the task has been modified. That is because I am connected with another account somewhere else. So that's my mistake. That shouldn't happen to you. There you go. And I have finished the entire project, so there's nothing left available here. That's done. So as far as XTM is concerned, everything has been done and delivered, and we're happy about that. The project is going to show enclosed. So this is the one here. Now we still have to go back to Plunet, of course, because you know that it hasn't been delivered there. And this is when you're going to want to double check the layout of the file. It's of course really important because so far, except for the inline tags, which you have been carefully applying to your target column, you haven't been working in the actual file. So you haven't been able to double check that the layout properly matches the source. So, sorry, that's not where you should be going. You can go to the file manager and can't find anything here because it's probably my translation. Yes. So you need to download the source, open it, and just as you would when you're working outside of the CAD tool, let me make this smaller, there you go. You need to compare the two and double check that your layout is correct against this one. All right, so this is very important. We do ask you to do that. It's just a normal step of any translation process. So you double check the layout. Of course, you save the file, and once that is done, let me go back to the validation. So this is my validation. Please note that it's in the instructions. If the translation, revision, and validation steps have been performed in XTM, please download the final file from the CAD tool after finalizing your validation in order to upload it in Plunet. In that case, make sure to open the file, check the layout, and update it if necessary based on the resource layout and on the source layout, and or the project-specific instructions before uploading it in Plunet. So if you're going to deliver your file and you're going to check this box here, we do trust that you have checked the layout. And at this point, you can put your file here. And this is the one. And you know how to do this. You know how to upload a file. It's been covered in previous trainings. And once that's done, you do see your file here. You have carried out all the instructions as requested. You can deliver your project. Again, confirmation here, and you can close. And that's it. Your project has been delivered. Fantastic. So this is how to deal with a project in XTM and Plunet from this window and from the XTM window. Now, I haven't talked about everything in XTM, and I see we still have 8 minutes, so I do want to cover a few extra things. And I kept the best for last, really. So I hope you're all still here and I'm not talking to myself, because we haven't talked about those tabs here, and those are going to help you a lot. Those are features that we haven't had before. in any other tool we've used, and we're extremely happy to make these features available to you starting now. The first one, called TM, sounds pretty vague. We know that we're using a TM, but what does this do? Well, look at it. I'm still in my freelance account, so this is something, by the way, that you can access at any time, whether you're working in the CAT tool for a translation, or if you're working outside of the CAT tool in the source document, but still for one of our clients. You can double check here if there's anything that can be helpful to you. So this TM feature allows you to proceed to search in the entire TM database of MCIS. Now that's a really amazing tool that until now had been an internal resource, and now we're making it available to every one of our translators. So that's really fantastic. The way it works is that it's client-based, so you have to choose a customer here, and let's keep the same customer we were working on, in this case the Ministry of Health of British Columbia. So you pick your customer here. You pick a source language. Usually it's going to be English. For now, that's all we have here. And you might have several languages because this customer requests in multiple languages. I'm going to pick French. A very important thing is to remember to change this, because usually you want to perform your search based on a source word, so on an English word and not on the target. So pick source and enter a word, a phrase, an idiom, whatever you want. You can enter it here. Let's type blood because it's Ministry of Health. There's a lot of documents about blood, and there you go. So you can see that you have a lot of segments that appear. Those are all the segments in the TM that have the word blood in it. Let's pick another one that's a little gruesome. Let's say health. There you go. Much happier. Okay, so you have all your segments here. They have an ID that doesn't really matter. You can see they've all been approved because we did a major migration of all of our translation memory in here. So all the segments have been approved. Be mindful, however, as I said before, that there might be problems sometimes. You might see that a source doesn't really go with a target. That does happen. In most cases it doesn't, and we're pretty happy with the state of our translation memory. But as some of you may know, there might be a few issues here and there that happen. So when you use the search feature, do be mindful of that. Notice that we do have a lot of results. It's the Ministry of Health, so obviously the word health is going to come a lot in this research, in this search, and you do have 908 segments, and you can all use them for suggestions. Of course, the more you type here, the more specific it's going to get. So I think you can already see just by this very quick preview how useful this feature can be. I'm really happy about it. Sorry if I sound super enthusiastic here, but it is really useful, and I hope that you will be using this feature to help you in your work. So this is the first tab I wanted to cover, the TM tab. The second one is the terminology tab. Now this is linked to our glossaries, which I have briefly mentioned before. I showed you how to add terms in glossaries. And all of the glossaries that we have for our clients, there aren't as many as the text-based translation memories, but we do have quite a few glossaries here. They're all accessible from here. You can research, and let's look at this one, because this is one of the glossaries where there's almost nothing. We just started it for test purposes. And look at this, drinking water. That is the term that I added before. So you can see that it has been properly added in my glossary. And this is the window that concerns this term. And you have your source language, English Canada, drinking water, and French here, eau potable, as the translation. See that you can see who created it again. And you have the context here. So that's quite useful. Some of our glossaries are extremely large. They contain thousands and thousands of entries, and they're extremely useful to use. So please do use them. Look at this one. Close to 2,000 entries. We do have, as I mentioned before, the on-term glossary. This glossary, it's not everything you can find on on-term, but it's some of the most useful things. So you have legal terminology, medical terminology, mental health terminology, and youth terminology in this. So this is all very useful information. And look at this, it's extremely, extremely large, this glossary. You do have a lot of entries. So please refer to that whenever you want. I actually think it's much easier to use than the actual on-term website. So that's here for your convenience. Again, you can choose the languages here. This is all very straightforward, the interface, so it's really easy to use. So these are those two wonderful tabs that I do recommend that you use. Now I wanted to show you an extra thing. I have 2 minutes. Quick. I hope it works from here. It doesn't. So I'm gonna, because the project is closed, I don't have access to what I want to show you. So I'm gonna connect to my my other account just to be able to show you this. And I hope I'm not breaching any IT policies here by opening this in front of you. I trust you guys. When you it's not going to be exactly the same thing, but the interface is not going to be exactly the same for you. But I still want you to see this. So I will go to any of those projects. It doesn't really matter because again, it's not going to look like this exactly for you. It's going to be similar though. You're going to have a window where it says offline translation in one of those columns. And from here, this is also a feature that wasn't available before and that we're making available to you now, and I think that's something you might enjoy. I know that some of you are already working in their own CAD tools. We can think of Trados, for instance, which is one of the most widely used in the industry. If you have translation memories in those CAD tools that you have built for projects that you do for MCIS, and you might have those translation memories. They might be extremely useful to use for you when you do your translations, and you might want to refer to them on top of our own translation memories. Well, you can do that from right here. You're going to go to offline translation and files, and again, that's going to be covered in the training material we'll be sending you. And from this wheel here, the wheel icon, you can generate different types of documents. One of them being XLIF, so you can click here. Again, you have the option to populate target work source. I'm going to say no. It doesn't really matter at this point. It's going to generate an XLIF file, which is, as you might or might not know, a translation memory file, a CAD tool file, which contains basically what you have seen in the online editor. So it has a source column, a target column, pre-translated segments, glossary suggestions, and so forth. So you can generate this file here and download it right from here. And then you can open that in your own software, let's say Trados, work in your software, do your translation there. Again, that's going to help you to not only use our translation memory because you're going to have pre-translated segments in this file, but you can also run an analysis against your own translation memory, so you might get more matches. And also, it's simply easier maybe for you to work in your own CAD tool, and we do understand that there's translators have a lot of things to deal with, a lot of softwares to use, and it might be more useful for you to work in your own. So you can use this file, and once you have saved it, you have finished your translation, saved the file, you can re-upload it here, upload XLIF, and it's going to mark the task as completed and move it to the next step. Again, you will have in Plunet to mark it as completed, but in XTM it will be done. It will be ready for revision. The revision will be performed either in XTM or in another CAD tool. It doesn't really matter, but this is just a feature that we think might be extremely useful for those of you who are already using a CAD tool. Alternatively, if you're not using any CAD tool at all, you can also download this type of file. Oh, this is upload, sorry. Generate XTM Excel file. This is for those of you who don't have a CAD tool, but want to work in a software that they're familiar with. You can download this. I'm not sure I have set everything up here, but it works. It looks okay. So this is Microsoft Excel. I think everyone has this software. It's really straightforward. People know how to use it. And you can see that by downloading this file, you have access to everything that we've seen in the online tool. So you have your source, you have your targets, you have comments here, you have suggestions from the glossary, you have pre-translations, you have the status. Everything looks basically the same. The only thing with both this file, and sorry, I'm going a little fast, but we're reaching the end of the time that we have. both with this file and the XLIF file, is that they are considered, as you can see here, offline translation, which means that whatever translation you're doing in there is not being updated live in XTM. This can be an issue if we have several translators working on a same project at the same time, because we would want them to see each other's work or to be able to pull from the system suggestions from each other's work. So let's say that I'm translating a sentence that is repeated in a document that someone else is translating at the same time. We don't want both people to be translating that. That's a waste of time. If you do the translations in these two formats, well, we can't update the TM live, so we can't use repetitions for internal repetitions, basically. So that is a limitation. So we do always recommend to use the XTM tool that I have shown you from here, but these are solutions that you can use. But please check with your project coordinator before choosing to perform your translations in these formats. By the way, because they're offline, they can also be useful if you suddenly don't have access to internet. So let's say you're going on vacation, you have a 12-hour flight, and you know you're not going to be able to sleep. Well, you might download this and perform your translation on the plane and deliver it when you land. That's a great way to spend your time. See, I do like working a lot, even on a plane. Anyway, I think that's it. I did cover a lot of topics. That was a lot of information. I hope you didn't fall asleep. I hope you found all of this interesting. And at this point, I'm going to be taking questions from you guys. Oh, and I have to open the question tool, of course. All right, so we have a question from Carol. Everything is clear and useful about the glossary. Do all the translators have the ability to add terms? Then they will be approved by MCIS and or the client. At this point, yes, we have decided that all translators have the ability to add terms, but they won't be approved by MCIS at this stage, meaning that there's no one who's going to be double checking what you put in the glossary. We do trust the people we work with to be professional and to add to the glossary terms that are only relevant. So that's entirely up to you to add terms to the glossary. It only helps you. It doesn't help our project coordinators. It doesn't help our clients, really, although, of course, it improves the quality of the translations, but it mostly helps you to build glossaries. So we trust you to do a great job with that tool and to use it efficiently. Another question from Carol, and when we are translating, if we look up words in the terminology tool, should we be mindful as to whether the terms have been approved or not? Can we not agree or suggest a change or different term? At this stage, you cannot agree or suggest a term. These are features that the tool does provide, but the access rights we have set up at this time are only view or add. So you can view what's in the glossary, you can add what's in the glossary. We don't want you guys to be spending too much time in the glossary, to be deleting stuff by mistake, because sometimes that happens, especially when using new tools that we're not familiar with. So at this point, you can only view and add. I hope that answers your question. Does anyone else have questions regarding all of the tools that we've seen? I see a question from Jane. Are we allowed to merge two source documents into one? No. As a translator, that is not something that you're allowed to do. That is something that is done at the project management level, so it would be done in Plunet. And if it's relevant to do it in a specific project, then your project coordinator will have done that for you. Any other question? No, I don't see any other. If you do have more questions, I'm still here. We can take a few more minutes. Can we do translation in Chinese, asks Ben. Yes, we can. And let me just log back here. Ben, maybe you have been doing translations for our BC clients, the Ministry of Health. Those files I know are available here in Chinese. So if you want to, for instance, research the translation memory, you can see here that it's available in Chinese traditional, because that's what the client requests here. And again, I can search for health in source, and you're going to have your Chinese text here. So yes, we do work in Chinese in this CAT tool. The CAT tool supports every possible language. At this point, we only have French, English, Chinese, and Spanish, if I'm not mistaken, because those are the languages that made sense when we started using our previous CAT tool, which had a lot of limitations. But we are hoping to be able to use this new CAT tool in more languages very soon. So we'll keep you updated on that. Oh, Jane had made a mistake. She means two sentences, merging sentences. Yes, Jane, when you are in the online tool and you're performing a translation, you can merge segments if they are separated by a dotted line. So if you find useful to merge them because it just makes more sense to you, you can merge them simply by using the right-click menu. Can a reviser also use this tool? Yes, that is a very good question, Zay. So far in our previous CAT tool, only the translation was done in the CAT tool and the revision and validation were done outside, so in the original file format. For consistency and quality assurance purposes, we are using XTM for the complete workflow. So everything is done in XTM, translation, revision, and validation of revision. The only step that is done in the actual target document, in the target file format, is double checking the layout, which I showed you a few minutes ago. So that's about doing revisions. Any more questions? Looks like not. Of course, if you have more questions, you can always write us or ask your project coordinator. Sorry, he or she will put you in touch with someone who can answer your question. If you go to your freelancer account, you do have all of these resources here, the full manual, which I mentioned before, FAQ, and we have produced an MCIS specific training material that we will be sending to you very shortly, and which contains information not only about using XTM, but about using XTM with Plunet. So it does repeat all the steps concerning delivery of tasks, double checking the layout, and so forth. And it's also shorter than this very long training material, so if you don't have too much time to go in the details of the tool, you can refer to that document that we'll be sending out very shortly. So I hope all of this answers your question. I hope that this session has piqued your curiosity about this tool and that you'll be interested in working in it. We are very hopeful that we're going to be able to use the tool for more and more projects, more and more clients, and more languages, because it really does make everyone's work so much easier, especially yours as translators. So stick around for our TM projects. I think you're going to enjoy working in this tool. Thank you everyone for attending. Again, we will be making the recording of this session available to you, so you can double check it anytime you want. And we'll be sending you more information by email very shortly. Thank you again and enjoy the rest of your day.